Got the light. Let's do it. Let's go live. Yo! That's right, a double salute. That's what I give you guys. Welcome to the show. Hello! My name is Chris, and welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. This is a show where we talk about all sorts of comic book stuff for the next 2 hours. I'm going to review a bunch of comics that I read in the past week, and then I'm going to start drawing something while talking with you about the biggest comic book related news of the week. And there is some big juicy stuff there to talk about. Also want to point out right up top, we've been on a trek to give away this rare Radiant Black Blacklight variant cover. So, I said, if I get to 500 concurrent viewers, 500 likes while this video is live, or 500 total dollars in super chat donations, I'll give this away to a random person. We're already, I'm keeping track of how much we've gained in super chats, and we're halfway there. So tonight, if we get $250 more, I'll choose one of you to win this. So that could be fun. Just keep that in mind. But let's take a look at who is in the chat room. I like to start off by just saying hello to some of the names that I see there. All right. Hello to Daryl. Hello, K-Bar. Hello, Hunka Junk. I like that name. Hello, Alexandra Bellinge, I'm guessing. Sorry if I got that wrong. Hello to Pensador Dantas, Graham Odom, Sir Mr. Howell, Josh Padilla, Chemdog, Joe Dent, Austin Douglas, Mike, Moritaka Ishada. Wow, lots of people here. Few new names. Love seeing that mix of familiar names and new names. That's exciting. Who else is here? Hello to El Torito, 1722. Hello, Dave Wright. Lovely. Thank you, folks. Hi, Samuel. Love having everybody here. We've got some interesting comics to talk about this week. Wasn't a huge week, but definitely got some interesting stuff, I think, mixed in here. I took a chance on a couple new titles that I hadn't been reading, so I'll go over that. There's like 3 new books to me, 3 issue number 1s that I'll go over. And I also was at an art supply store, and they had this, like, what would I call it? Like a blind bag or something? It says Crazy About Comics, and I don't know, it just had this cool art. I have no idea what's in here. I'm assuming it's art supplies you could use to make comics, but I don't know what it is. This was just at an art supply store, and I was like, sure, I'm going to give that a shot. So we'll see what that is. But first, I'll start with the comics of the week and everything like that. Let's see. Do I have a plan to do about Jerry Conway soon? Not soon. Always a possibility of somebody that I'd love to get into. I definitely read a lot of his Spider-Man growing up, so definitely is somebody that I could talk about. But to answer your question, soon? No, I've got a lot of others that are currently in the works that would come first. So anyway, let's start with some reviews. Oh, and I will also be drawing something when I talk about the news of the week, and that's going to be something from a show that I really have been enjoying, Stranger Things. But no spoilers, don't worry, just a character from there. Lovely to see a bunch of other people here. Hello, Zero, Punisher's Warzone, K-Bar, Marvin Nation. It's a burrito, yeah. Who else did I not say hello to? I don't think I said hello to Brian Reagan or James Stewart. Hope it has cookies inside. Oh, nice. Hey, it's Jim Mahfood. Always nice to have you here, Jim. Jim's a regular presence on these. He says, Yo, Joe, Chris, nice job with that Hama interview. Thank you. Yes, the latest Comic Tropes episode was an interview episode, and I got to interview somebody that I would honestly consider one of my comic book heroes, Mr. Larry Hama. Probably best known as a writer on things like G.I. Joe. Had a really lengthy run on Wolverine that was incredible. But he's also been an artist and an editor, and he's been working, since sort of that tail end of the Silver Age. So, he got taught by guys like Bernie Krigstein. I did an episode about him. He was an apprentice to Wally Wood. I do need to do an episode about him. And he worked side by side, literally, with Neil Adams, who, of course, I did an episode about recently. Larry can teach us a lot. So if you haven't watched it, I sincerely, strongly recommend that episode. I know not everybody watches interview episodes, but I did put chapter breaks in that episode as well in case you want to potentially skip ahead to anything. But I sincerely think he's got some funny stories, some interesting stories that you will not hear from other creators these days. It was a privilege for me. And I think that you might be able to tell that I was a little bit nervous talking to Larry because I admire him so much. So I stumble over my words a tiny bit here and there. I don't think it's anything that like sidetracks me, but usually I think I'm a little more smooth when I'm talking. And I've done some interviews with people that I would consider like to be pretty big names, you know. I interviewed Stan Lee once, and I didn't get as tongue-tied talking to Stan Lee as I did to Larry Hama, because Larry's work means a lot to me. That was really some of the stuff that got me into comics when I was young, was his writing, his style, and his work. So it meant a lot to me, you know, and I didn't want to annoy somebody that I admire, and yet I want to probe and learn certain things. So it's like it's a balance when you're there, you know. Like I don't want it to be total light fluff, like just kissing his butt. I want to push and get a few good stories out of it. But I admire this person a lot. So I sort of I'm a little different, I think, in that interview. And you know, before I ever did Comic Tropes, my other YouTube show, I for many years did a podcast about TV. And I would interview actors and stuff, literally on the red carpet, you know, like so that you couldn't always plan ahead and stuff like that. And I just got used to talking to people and not being intimidated by their status. But when you've got a personal connection, it makes a difference. Andrew Jefferson with a super chat, kicking things off. Thank you very much. If you had a G.I. Joe figure based on yourself, what would your specialty be? You know, I actually technically sort of did, but a lot of kids did. In the late 80s, G.I. Joe had a mail-away action figure you could get. It was called the Steel Brigade, and it was, you know, sort of a generic army guy with like a helmet on, so you didn't have to see the face, and you would write in what your code name was and what your specialties were, and it would print you up not quite a file card, it was on dot matrix like paper, but it would like print you a type of a file card, and you would have this action figure that was supposed to be you on the G.I. Joe team. So technically I did sort of have one there. And what was my specialty? I really don't remember, but I was really into the ninja stuff, so I probably said that I was like a martial artist or something like that. I don't have video footage of me on like red carpets. You could probably look up certain episodes of the show that I did. It's going to be really dated now, you know. I'd be asking about episodes that have passed like many years ago. But it was called Television Zombies for whatever it's worth. And I would interview like, I don't know, all sorts of people. It doesn't really matter. That was a lot of preamble, wasn't it? Let's get into reviewing some comics. First one I picked up was because I was talking to the salesperson at the comic book store that I usually go to, and I asked her, like, hey, what have you been reading lately? And she said that she liked the first issue of this book called The Closet, so I said, sure, that's how I find comics, is I'll listen to somebody's recommendation. It's a horror book, and it's written by James, I don't know whether it's pronounced Tynion or Tynion, because I've heard both. I thought that it was Tynion, but I could be wrong. Another super chat. Thank you, Mooper-san. That's really, really nice. Technically, Tunnel Rat is supposed to be based on Larry Hama. Yes, that action figure was based on him for a visual likeness and specialty. Thank you for the super chat, Mooper-san. Anyway, this book has some really lovely art by Gavin Fullerton, and actually I also really noted the colors here by Chris O'Halloran. One thing that's interesting to me is like it's got this texture here and there, and it looks like a thumbprint or a fingerprint, and I don't know, it just is something that I noticed that I kind of like. I don't know that I loved this issue as much as the person that recommended it to me. You know, it starts very based in like real life. There's this guy who is about to move with his wife and young son, and he's instead of like helping them pack, he's sort of having some drinks because things aren't perfect at home. When he gets home, the wife is a little annoyed, and the kid is saying that there's a monster in their closet. Let me acknowledge this super chat. Josh Padilla says, your interview with Larry Hama is why comic tropes is amazing, discussing a lot of practices in the comics industry that casual readers don't notice, but comic fans can appreciate. Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the kind words. Some of what I'm aiming to do, so I really appreciate that. That's super kind of you. As far as like this book goes, as you can see, it's really well paced. You know, it's not like overloading any page with like too many panels or too much dialogue or anything. It feels very naturalistic, and that extends to the art and the coloring choices. So that's good. It grounds things very, very well. And then eventually, of course, there's a monster in the closet. I mean, like, I don't think that's a spoiler. It's called the closet. Like, what else is going to happen? But this monster is something almost like a tiny, like, alien, and it is effectively creepy since it's all in shadow, and it isn't doing anything overtly violent, but the kid thinks that it's going to come with them when they move. All that is to say, that isn't ending things on much of a cliffhanger, and not a whole lot happens in this first issue. I don't know where this is going, so it's hard to like criticize something before you get too far, because maybe this needed to be set for the stage. Personally, though, if I was the editor, I might say, why don't we start later? Like, why don't we jump ahead and like have some of this as just like, you know, the history of the characters? I don't know. Either that or a double size issue where something happens. I do understand setting the world. I understand establishing stakes and creating characters that I understand and that I care about. I do understand all those things. I feel like James Tynion could have somehow found a way to condense this at least. You know? This is really good paced. I feel like it's going to read better as a full story. As a single issue, I personally wasn't blown away. Yeah, I don't know if the alien's paying rent either, Andrew Jefferson. A wonderful observation. I'm curious to see where it goes. It's hard to give it a strong recommend. Moving on, issue 21 of Firepower. Crazy to think that we are almost 2 years into Firepower, because it feels like this is a very new comic to me, but I guess, you know, like, yeah, it's been coming out monthly for almost 2 years now. Now, look, you can't really criticize anything about Chris Samnee's art. You just can't. It's impeccable. It's clean, and it's clear, and you can tell the characters apart, and the environments are solid. There's just a lot to like about this. And then on top of that, you know, these are really good colors for it. Matt Wilson doing the colors. Matt Wilson's won plenty of awards, and I think when you look at this, there's some texture and some gradients, but also it's got nice, clean, solid amounts of color. It's not quite flat, but it's clean. It isn't overly rendered on a face so that, like, you know, it's obscuring some of the detail. And of course, Chris Samnee's line art is so open that you can get away with actually a little bit more rendering than you can on certain other books. Welcome, Steve Sorensen. Yes, there was an OGN to launch Firepower. There was. But that came out the same month that the first issue did. Good way to launch it. As far as a story, there's a humongous dragon being controlled by an evil kung fu man, and so all the different good kung fu guys of the world are trying to gather their forces because they're the only ones that can somehow stop it. That hasn't quite been explained to me exactly how they would have an advantage over, say, like, the military. I don't quite understand that, but I will say this is pretty exciting, seeing like this huge dragon go after, like, you know, U.S. aircraft carriers and just decimate them. That's some pretty bombastic action that looks gorgeous. Like I say, I don't know. I wish I knew these characters a little better to understand their plan. It feels somewhat cliche. And I don't expect that out of Kirkman, because I honestly think if you read, say, Invincible, that plays with things that you would think of as cliche or tropes, and then it constantly subverts them. So I would have expected him to subvert this a little bit more. Suffice it to say, in terms of a short review, love the art, love the setting. Wish I cared about the characters a little bit more. I don't feel like that this is quite original enough, and I know that it could be funnier or scarier. Those are both things that, like, Robert is great at, comedy and horror. So I wish it pushed one of those a little bit more so that I understood the characters a little more. Yeah, the first trade is very fun. I definitely agree. The first trade of Firepower is solid. Very solid. Hey, it's issue 8 of A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance already. That's by Rick Remender and artist Andre Lima Araujo. And this one is a fast read. To catch you up, there's just this guy that's trying to save a kid from a hitman, and he's a sadistic hitman at that. But this issue is almost all action. There's hardly any dialogue. You are going to fly through this. You know, the hero gets tortured slowly. He comes up with a clever way to escape. It's awesome. It's brutal too. It's really brutal. This in and of itself might not mean that much to you because it's almost all action. But if you've been reading it for the previous 7 issues, this is some great payoff, and you can see where things are here. You know, it feels like it's just cresting into the second of 3 acts. Things are just about to go totally bonkers to wrap it up. Art's solid, story is exciting. This reads a lot though like a movie as compared to a comic book. It doesn't necessarily have much in the way of subplots or certainly no thought balloons or anything to understand a character inside. So it really almost plays like a movie in comic book form, and I don't know if that's quite right. Didn't a Comic Tropes interview with Kirkman also launch Firepower? You know what? I sort of forgot, but you're right, BB. I did do an interview with Robert just before Firepower launched. I just felt like that was going to be a good, convenient time if I invited him on the show. I knew he was looking to promote it, so I guess that's why we did that. Is that starring Benedict Wong, asks Jamillan Parks. It certainly looks like Benedict Wong, doesn't it? Like the main character. And Benedict Wong, of course, played a lead role in the adaptation of Rick Remender's book with Wes Craig, Deadly Class. He played a teacher on the TV adaptation of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Rick designed this guy as though Benedict Wong could play him. Joe Dent with a super chat from jolly old England. £2. Thank you. Keep up the good work, Chris. Man, I'm going to try. The guy in that looks like Simon Pegg in Hot Fuzz. Yeah, I could see that a little bit. I think he's a little younger maybe than Simon Pegg could play right now. But a little bit. By the way, just since you mentioned Simon Pegg, I really like the Star Trek movie he wrote, the third one in that sort of reboot, or what do they call it, the Kelvin timeline. I like that. I don't know, there's rumors that Paramount wants to make a 4th one, but I don't think they've got everybody under contract yet, so we'll see. But I will say, as far as excellent Star Trek goes, their current show, which is called Strange New Worlds on the Paramount Plus app, it's fantastic. It's vying for my all-time favorite Star Trek show. I'll wait till the season finishes, but I love it. Excellent writing, excellent characters, excellent cast. Some of the best Star Trek I've ever seen. Easily. All right, this one I liked a lot. This is a bonkers title. Writer Charles Soule, artist Ryan Browne. It's called 8 Billion Genies. Just like it implies, there are 8 billion genies, basically one for every living human being. One day, just everybody in the world gets a genie. Everybody gets a genie, and everybody gets a single wish, and that's explained to them. Intent matters with how they phrase it. They're not trying to do a monkey's paw, oh, well, you said this literally. No, they're going to grant you your wish, but everybody gets one. So wishes could theoretically cancel out other wishes depending on the timing, when we're going to stack the deck. It is crazy. And we focus on a bunch of people in a bar in a quiet town in Michigan. And the owner of the bar makes a wish that any wishes made outside of the bar won't affect anyone inside of the bar. He makes a wish quickly like that. He's thinking ahead, and he's thinking of others, basically. He says, like, I'll just skip ahead to, like, the end of the world where they look outside of the bar for the first time. And as you can see, we've got giants and castles and people with new monster trucks, people with superpowers, people with exosuits. The world has just gone crazy because everybody got one wish. And I'm curious to see where this goes and what the chaos leads to. We're gonna the story's gonna not like jump too far ahead. It's gonna like sort of follow every couple of hours as soon as this happens. And it asks this question at the bottom here. Just one genie per person. So 8 million genies for 8 million people. And it asks this question, which I'll pose to you guys. Okay, I'm going to read this. What would you wish for? Would you ask for something for yourself or take something from another? Would you help or would you hurt? Would you change yourself or change the world? And forget about your wish, what about everyone else's? So you've got to think. This happens now. You got to like probably think fast. So like think fast right now. People are making wishes out there that could impact you. What would you wish for? Would you wish for something that protects everybody? You know, be selfless? Would you wish for something that protects you and your family? Would you wish for like, you know, just something really nice and hope that it all works out? Like, I'm curious, does anybody like right off the bat like have an idea for what they would wish for? Like, be creative. I feel like I might be a tiny bit selfish and say that I wish that my direct family was like healthy or protected from other wishes or something like that. And climate change, well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That might make the world a much better place. I wouldn't do it. You wouldn't make a wish. Okay. I mean, maybe you wait and see what's happening and hold on to your wish just in case. But you know, I wish to be immortal. See, but if you wish that, think that one through for a minute, Marvin. Let's be realistic. Someday, it's billions of years, but someday the sun is going to go supernova and destroy this planet. Do you really want to just be floating in space for all time? I don't know if I'd want to be immortal. Take everyone else's wishes for myself. I think that there are probably limits to certain things. I'd wish for my family and me to be Superman, but with no weaknesses. Right away. I'd wish for the ability to manipulate time in any way that I want. Now that's interesting. That's a very interesting one. Wow. I wish to be immune to others' wish. Might be smart. Might be very smart. There are other planets. Yeah, but how do you get there if you're the only person? How do you get there? Wish for infinite wishes? I don't think you can do that. Like, I think that would just, yeah, that, I wish for infinity hamburgers. Well, you'd never go hungry. I would wish for a Make-A-Wish Foundation. Good news, BB, it already exists. Congrats. Teleportation. Yep. I think one person in here, in 8 billion genies does do that. The immortal thing happened in Osamu Tezuka's Phoenix Future chapter. Right. I need to reread that. I'd wish for all wishes to be negated. Interesting idea. You have infinite time to float. Oh, that just sounds like you'd go insane, though. Wish for cancer to not exist. I like that. Better have a great imagination, though. I would wish for the ability to live in the non-wish dimension. I like that, Chrissy. As soon as other people get the wishes, it starts to become scary, doesn't it? Like, you can wish for something cool, but you might not really get to enjoy it, depending on how other wishes play out. If I'm immortal, but everyone I know isn't, it would eventually feel like a curse. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Chrissy likes infinity hamburgers. And Black Phoenix congratulates Chrissy on getting her wish. Hey, maybe Chrissy came from the wish dimension in this comic to this world. Maybe she did get her wish. How would a wish for world peace play out with 8 billion other wishes going on out there? I think, like, when you make that wish, it would happen. But if somebody makes a wish after that, it can, like, retroactively sort of, like, it could affect things. But maybe somebody will. That's what we're going to find out. Like, Charles Soule is going to explore what happens when we have conflicting wishes. So that's what we're going to get to find out. And I can't wait to see what the chaos does. Anyway, I wish everyone who made a wish gains really bad spring allergies. Mission accomplished there. Anyway, the artwork by Ryan Browne, I wouldn't necessarily call it super exciting, but it's clear enough. And the genies he makes are actually pretty cute. But I can tell the people apart, and I can tell what's going on, and that's plenty. And it's just interesting to see how these wishes affect people and uncover, like, somebody's inner self. So I recommend it. It's pretty bonkers. 1 of 8, an 8-issue series. I recommend it. Issue 3 of We Have Demons, which I believe Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo did this one as something like either Substack or online, but now Dark Horse is printing it. This issue 3 basically wraps up the initial arc. They could bring it back, but right now this wraps it up. So that's not too many books to read to get a full story. And it's about, like, you can either get, like, this limited amount of special metal called Halo, which is powered by faith in something, or there is Horn, which turns people into demons. And, well, I don't know what else I can say about this particular one without giving things away at this point. I'll just sort of give you an idea of the art and stuff. But it's sort of this big battle between the forces of good and a bunch of demons. And I do love Greg Capullo's ability to draw some really gnarly looking demons. I will say that they all look very sort of similar, so sometimes in a big scene like this, it's a little confusing who's who unless you look very closely, because they do have, like, differences, but I don't know if they're different enough, you know? I think that could have helped. So you've got some good guy ninjas that are basically all religious, and you've got some demons that all curse and talk dirty and stuff like that. It's cool. It's a cool story. I liked it. It's fun art. It's a fun premise. Scott Snyder's also doing stuff with sort of demons, or at least monsters, in Nocterra. The difference is this one's very supernatural. Nocterra is much more science-based for a comparison. Hey, it's my sister. Hey, Jean. Glad you could make it. My sister had her birthday yesterday, so Jeannie, happy birthday. You want to know what she got? We got her a lawnmower. Now that's a gift. It's something she needed. Happy birthday. I'm glad you could make it here. You know, I have not read really any of the Transformers books that IDW has done. I know it has its fans. They've got a bunch of different series. I know a lot of people love it. And I grew up loving Transformers, but it just seemed like a lot of continuity by the time I sort of realized they were doing books. So I haven't really read it. It's a lot, you know. It's intimidating. But I decided to get this. IDW is about to lose their Transformers license. They're doing this limited series right at the end called Last Bot Standing. And I guess you could sort of think of this as like an old man Logan in the Transformers world. And I also wanted to get it because the art is by my pal E.J. Sue. With the writing by a guy named Nick Roche. I wish I could say I liked it more than I did. It's almost like two different books, to be honest. The first half is one story, and then the second half is another story. The first half is just a little hard to relate to because it takes place on an alien world on some place in the future, but it's also a Western world, and the characters really like talk with like lots of Western slang and stuff like that. It's a lot. It's a lot. And then the second half, all of a sudden, quickly becomes like, you know, some robots fighting. And this seems to be Rodimus Prime, at one point a Transformers leader. But the first thing he does is kill another Transformer that seems innocent. I don't know what to make of it. Maybe this is based on previous stories or something. It also ends with a cliffhanger of like this sort of cute bunny robot being a threat. So I don't know what to make of this book, to be honest. I like the art. The second half of the book I liked more than the first half. The characters are well defined enough, but like I found it a little annoying reading all their like slang, like what in tarnation is going up on them dar hills, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. I don't know. Thanks for the birthday wishes. There you go. Nobody knows, Alexandra, what's happening with the rights to Transformers and G.I. Joe yet. There's been rumors, but there's nothing defined. But hey, I always talk about all the comic book news of the week, every week on this show. As soon as there's like a solid rumor or solid news, I will talk about it on the show. I wish I liked this more. If any of you out there have been reading Transformers, you'll have to tell me, like, if this is like, you know, ties into anything that you knew from previous stories or something like that. I wasn't really into it. There were parts that I liked. It didn't connect with me in a big way. I wanted to. Yeah, pretty much, Chemdog. What was going up in them thar hills? Robots. Let's see. Last new book that I read this week, Red Room Trigger Warnings #3. This is sort of a type of anthology horror story by Ed Piskor. He does the writing and art. And I say anthology in that it's all set in the same sort of world. It's got the same premise, but every issue tells a different story with different characters. But they're all about people getting tortured online in so-called red rooms that are funded by cryptocurrency. And this is nothing different. This one, the idea is that a certain guy finds access to a ton of money hidden on like a thumb drive, okay? Like a ton of cryptocurrency that was there from the beginning, and it's worth a lot. But he also goes to an island, I think to like get help from somebody he used to know, but it's being run by people that are a cult, kind of like in the movie The Wicker Man. I'm talking about the good one, not the Nicolas Cage remake. So that's it's kind of cool there. It's what would you call this type of horror? I'd call it like there's a term for it, like movies like The Wicker Man, but it's not coming to me right now. I also love, by the way, like that there's all this sort of like fan art in the back here. Like he actually prints his fan art. Look, this is not going to be for everybody, because this is super violent and exploitative, intentionally so. It's really vulgar. But it's trying to be vulgar. It's effective. It's effective. I would say that this is one of the more fun issues with some interesting twists and turns. Overall, I'd say that Trigger Warnings, I've so far enjoyed more than the first 6 issues, for what that's worth. Red Room is not for the faint of heart. I check it out before, but I'm okay passing on it going forward. Yeah, it is not for everyone. So, you know, honestly, like, you would know if you want this or not. Like, if you like really dark horror that like is trying to push the boundaries of what you can do and say, then it's for you. I'm curious to see what Ed is experimenting with. You know, he's half of the YouTube channel Cartoonist Kayfabe. They have a daily show reviewing and discussing comic book techniques. But yeah. This issue was supposed to have a Jim Rugg mouse homage variant that got pulled because of backlash. Yes, and I think rightly so. I think that was in poor taste, and I think that to Jim's credit, he at least realized that very quickly. But anyway, that was everything I got that was new, and I always pick up some back issues. This issue of Incredible Hulk might not look too fancy. 282. Covered by Al Milgrom, which is kind of cool. I think the interior art is Herb Trimpe. But believe it or not, this is the first time Hulk and She-Hulk are in a story together. Because in She-Hulk's story, or her comic when it launched, her cousin was just in there as Bruce Banner, not as the Hulk. So this is actually the first time Hulk and She-Hulk fight together against an enemy. So that's fun. I also picked up a random issue of John Byrne's Fantastic Four run. This was right after Secret Wars, so the Thing had stayed behind on this alien planet, and they recruited She-Hulk to be on it. As you can see, I'm just like, if I can find an important She-Hulk book that's like, cheap right now, it's a good time, because as soon as her show starts, they'll be too expensive. Ed Piskor plugged me on kayfabe. That's nice. He and Jim are great guys. Yeah, it's a Bill Mantlo issue. Exactly right, Andrew Jefferson. I got this because I've read a couple Charles Soule Star Wars comics, and I like them. This was the first issue of his run on Darth Vader, so I'm going to go back and read his Darth Vader run. I think Charles Soule has a good knack for getting Star Wars right, and yeah, so I'm excited to see that. And this is a variant where the artist has drawn it to look like the old action figures by Kenner. But that actually is drawn art. That is not a photograph or anything like that. And finally, this just looked interesting to me. Issue 100 of Showcase, which was a really important comic for DC. Issue 4 famously introduced the Barry Allen version of the Flash, the second Flash, which sort of kicked off the Silver Age of comics. So this one just has like a bunch of the characters that were featured in Showcase over the years. That was just sort of a tryout title where they would like do one-off stories for the most part with various DC characters and see what took off. Hello, Mandela Butterfly. Me, Ed, and Jim Mahfood should do a Japan trip. I'd love to hang out in Japan with those guys, that's for sure. But I'd also love to just go with my wife. Have some fun with my wife. Why isn't the Hulk called He-Hulk? I guess because he was the first. I guess because if She-Hulk was first, she could have been Hulk, and then he would have been He-Hulk. But he was first. So I've got a super light sketch that I've already lightboxed here of Vecna. He's sort of the big bad of season 4 of Stranger Things, but I won't get into talking too much about that. I'm just going to talk instead about comic book news. Oh, hold on. I almost forgot. I had this blind bag that I got at the art store. So let's open that. Like I said, I was at the art store. It says crazy about comics. Okay, it's going to be comic book related. Let's see what it is. El Torito says, I love watching cartoonist kayfabe. They're so fun. Yeah, they definitely produce a lot of content. That's for sure. All right, let's see what's in this blind bag, folks. Something comic book related that you can get at an art store. So I have no idea what to expect. Oh, okay, they got it wrapped up in here, so I gotta tear in. Blind bag. Ah. Okay. Put that over there. Start unwrapping. And we've got some Micron pens. Okay, I can always use those. An eraser. Something in here. Well, obviously I've got a sketchbook here. And let's see, what kind of paper is that? Can't tell. It's not Bristol, but that's okay. It's nice and smooth and clean. Okay, so I can just like have a sketchbook. Guess that's like related to comics. And then this is... Huh. Some interesting stuff that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. It looks like I've got sketch and wash. Okay, so like I think that this is like a almost like a watercolor pencil is what I'm gonna guess this is. Maybe Chrissy can tell me. But that's what it looks like. And then this is like a white sort of chalk, I guess. Right? Yeah, that's like a white sort of chalk that I can use. And then there's some pens here. Are they actually colored? Let's see. Yeah, they're colored fine liners. So for some reason it gave me like basically the RGB spectrum of colors as fine liners. Okay. I'll get the most use out of the Micron pen and the eraser, but I can always use a sketchbook as well. What is my favorite published comic artist sketchbook? You know what's a really good one that I love? I got one from Guy Davis, and I think Guy Davis is just an incredible artist, super underrated because I just don't think enough people know about his work. For a long time, he did work on BPRD, set in the Hellboy world. He also did the Marquis. Oh, that's a blender? Is that what that was? Thank you. Thank you very much, Tit Goblin. Appreciate that. The white stick is a blending stump. My bad. My bad. Yep, everybody knew what it was. I haven't used that before. Okay. Well, that's fun. So it's something new for me to experiment with. I like that. I like that a lot. Oh, you know what? I forgot to grab some bits of news from upstairs. Darn it. All right, well, I got a bunch of the news written here. Let's talk about the first one. This is going to be fun. Folks, it's time for news. I know you're excited now. We've all been making fun of Morbius for a while because it was not a very good movie. And I think people could just sort of tell that it wasn't going to be a good movie. And I saw it, and it wasn't a very good movie. It was kind of boring. That's its greatest sin. It was kind of boring. But everybody's been talking online, making jokes about stuff like it's Morbin time. That was the biggest. Morbin time. But anyway, lots of people making jokes on social media. Sony took this to mean, hey, you know what? There's a groundswell of interest in Morbius. We should re-release the movie, and maybe some people will see it ironically, right? Let me pause. Andrew Jefferson with a super chat saying, how's Little Bean? My gremlin is 1 year old today, and she is currently laying on my chest and attacking my fingers as I type. Still only 4 pounds. Enjoy that time. That's awesome. Little Bean is good. He's cuddling with Chrissy, of course, because that's his favorite. I'm okay, but he loves Chrissy. He tolerates me. So, yeah, the Morbin joke took off, and Sony thought that meant that people wanted to actually see the movie. And it's like, dudes, it's already streaming, basically. Like, what are you doing spending this money to, like, put it back in theaters? And, want to guess how much money it made? On Friday, the first Friday it was re-released from last week, they released it in 1,000 theaters, which is about half of what a big movie might get, or maybe a third, but, like, it's a lot of theaters. That's bigger than, like, you know, an art house release. 1,000 theaters. On Friday, it made $85,000. Let's do some math there. 85,000 divided by 1,000, that means $8,500. Right? Per theater? No, wait. No, that's not even close to right. Excuse me. That's is that only $85 per theater? Am I doing the math there right? That's even worse than I was thinking. 85,000 divided by 1,000. You're catching me like doing basic math. Yeah, $85 per theater. 85. And what's a ticket? Almost $20. So you're getting like 4 or 5 people a day go into a theater to see that movie. That's terrible. So Morbius already bombed. Now that Sony put it back out and it really bombed. Everybody that wanted to see Morbius or was even mildly curious already saw Morbius. Yeah, Morbin time. Let's see. El Torito, you're already mentioning what a piece of my news is, and I will get into that. But yeah, we're going to talk about Joe Quesada shortly. I will talk about that. Thank you very much for the super chat. I will acknowledge that soon. Anyway, that just really amused me personally that, you know, the movie didn't do well. And I think here's what it shows us. Social media is not the real world. Things get amplified on social media. It seems like everybody has the same opinion, or at least a lot of people can have, like, you know, some really harsh opinions, and you might not always agree with them, and it can get, like, sort of upsetting to see, like, so many of the same people saying the same thing online if you don't agree with it. But here's the thing. social media clearly isn't the real world, because everybody was talking about Morbius, but not everybody went to see it. That's for damn sure. So hopefully, the movie studios kind of learned a lesson there. I don't know, but wow, like that is pretty bad in my opinion. That is not so good to lose that kind of money. Look, everybody in the chat is making the Morbius jokes. And I don't think that Sony really learned their lesson, because what are their next several Spider-Man movies aside from Spider-Man? Because they're doing sort of like characters that they got with that intellectual property. They're doing a movie about El Muerto with Bad Bunny, and I'm sorry, but like El Muerto was only in like one issue of Amazing Spider-Man that I'm aware of. He might have like done a small cameo in something else. That's not much to base anything on. It's certainly no brand awareness. Like, nobody is... And it's a fine character. It just doesn't, like... Why? Like, there's other things to develop that would have more interest, is all. Or just develop something similar, and I don't think anyone would care. And then, what else? Madam Web? And I mean, I guess they're going to have to change that somewhat, because the Madam Web I know is just an old lady in a wheelchair that gets visions of the future, but that's not very interesting by itself. El Torito with another super chat. That's kind of you, saying, I was not going to watch Morbius. It looked no good. I'd say that the problem with it is it's mostly just boring. That's what I would say. I'd say it's very slight. There's not much to it. They didn't really do anything interesting. It's not that it's just outright like a train wreck on a technical level or an acting level, but it doesn't do anything interesting. It's very dull. It's very dull. It's very, and then like the final fight is just very generic and boring looking. So anyway, that's my quick review of Morbius. You think it'll be Julia Carpenter? Maybe. Oh, that's right. They're doing Craven. I like Craven, but yeah. Just saw updated numbers for Morbius. The 85,000 was only for a day or two. It was for one day, Friday, like I said. Over the weekend, it totaled 300,000, still paltry numbers. That's even worse, in my opinion. 300,000 for 3 days. Look, we're talking like $100,000 a day or whatever. Like it was in 1,000 theaters, so 300,000 divided by 1,000 theaters means $300 per theater per weekend. You divide that by like 20 and you get what, like 15 tickets sold? That's terrible. That's terrible. For the whole weekend, like the whole weekend, each theater was averaging selling about 15 tickets. I mean, the smallest theater I know usually has more like 50 seats. It's so bad, it's funny to me. All right, so let's go on to the next piece of news, which was actually just hinted at in the chat, but it's a big piece of news. Joe Quesada is announced that he is stepping down from being publisher at Marvel, and yeah, that's kind of big news because he's been there a long time. It went by fast to me, but yeah, he's been in that role for a long time now. And he's had, I think, a lot of hits and a few misses too, to be fair. But I think overall his run has been better than some as a publisher and stuff. So what did he do well? Marvel Knights was definitely a hit, and that's what got him his role. They brought Daredevil back to his status being like respected as a top tier character for Marvel. There was good stuff done with Black Panther. Not so much at first with Punisher, but at first they tried to like make him an angel, But then they did get Garth Ennis on him with Steve Dillon, and that was a hit. So anyway, they did a lot of good stuff. Originally, Jimmy Palmiotti was part of that, of course. And yeah, Joe Quesada did a lot of good things. And look, he's been in charge of Marvel while like the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe was created. So he had to keep it on steady footing during that whole time. You know, he worked with, I think, Axel Alonso as editor-in-chief, was a really solid editor-in-chief, did a lot for the company. They kept Tom Brevoort on. He's a great editor. There was a lot that Joe Quesada did well. There were a few things that I think he didn't do as well. One More Day for Spider-Man, like getting rid of his marriage to Mary Jane. Like, if you were going to get rid of it, just have a divorce. It's just not that big a deal. But instead, no, they made it supernatural with Mephisto, and it was pretty weird. Pretty weird. We don't know who's taking over yet, Dave. Great point. Let's see. Chad Chowder says that, Chad Cowder, I totally misread that, says that Joe Quesada's editor-in-chief run, keep in mind he was editor-in-chief for a long time, might be the third best of Marvel. Possibly. Third best. I guess that would mean like the first two would be Stan Lee and Jim Shooter. Yeah, that's possible. That's possible, actually. I think that might be fair, because even though there were some other talented people that were editor-in-chief at Marvel, usually they didn't last very long, and some of the editor-in-chiefs I think were weaker than others. You know, like I don't think that the Bob Harris era was anything to write home about. I think that was a pretty weak era. But different people will have different opinions. That's just mine. Yeah. But it's a big deal. You know, that's a big position, and it's a position that he was in for a very long time. So it will be interesting to see what Marvel does differently now. It will be interesting. I don't know what to expect, to be honest. I've thought about it a little bit, and I don't really have any big opinions on what will change immediately. Gotta be Lee and Shooter at number 1 and number 2. I think so. So, if you wanted to say, like, Joe Quesada number 3, I think that would be fair. I really do. He did a lot for Marvel. Not like everything he did was perfect, but he did a lot of good things. He had a lot of good ideas. He really did. He says that he wants to move on and just sort of work on some of his own projects and stuff. And who can blame him? You know, I mean, he was a writer and an artist before he was given all the responsibility of being an editor-in-chief at Marvel. That's a lot of responsibility. Let's see. Personally, One More Day was the most terrible decision to come by, and it not only ruined Peter and MJ, but it ruined JMS. Well, maybe. Do you think we will see other people leave after Joe Q? I don't really think so, Chad. That's an interesting question, but he's really leaving on amicable terms, you know? It doesn't seem like anyone forced him out. It doesn't seem like anyone pushed him out. It seems like this was 100% his decision, that it was just the right time. So I think because everything is ending on, like, you know, good terms, that no, like, I don't think we should expect anybody to necessarily leave with him. That I can't think of any big names that were saying that they were only there because they wanted to work with, you know, Joe Quesada. I can't think of anyone. Of course, some people will move on. People always do, but I can't think of anyone big right now. Your pen grip is an interesting style. Reminds me a bit of Eric Larson's holding style. I've heard that once before, or maybe even more than once. Yeah, I mean, Eric gets like a sort of a knuckle grip, like, on it, like really hard, almost like this with he's a lefty, but he has incredible arm control. You know, he draws really fast with his whole arm. It's really impressive, to be honest. Whereas I just sort of, like, you know, jam all my fingers into the point and sort of do a lot of tilting. I try to use my arm, but yeah. But that's big news when somebody like that steps down, you know? I mean, it means in the last couple of years, DC had Dan Didio step down, and now Marvel's having Joe Quesada stepped down. I think we can expect some sort of new ideas to start creeping into the big two with things like this. So I don't know. Could be good, could be bad, but I think we'll see some differences soon once people start exerting their power. You know what? I emailed you your news from yourself. Thank you, Chrissy. I did have some more news that I didn't take a picture of. Thanks, Chrissy. I've got a pretty good wife, folks. What else was I thinking of, though? Here's a piece of news that's sort of related in terms of people in power at Marvel and DC to a degree. So we talked about this not too long ago. DC, or really Warner Brothers, is now owned by Discovery. Discovery owns Warner Brothers. And, consequently, we were expecting some power shakeups in the corporate structure. The guy in charge of Warner Brothers, I'm forgetting his first name, but his last name is something like Laszlo or something. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what his name is, to be honest. What matters is he's looking for somebody to sort of take a role at DC akin to what Kevin Feige does for Marvel Studios. Because, obviously, the consistent element, the thing you can point to, like why most Marvel movies work pretty well, is probably Kevin Feige. He's the one that's making the calls on who they ultimately hire for both cast and crew. There's been a lot of consistency there. And he supposedly knows the comics pretty well. He actually reads the comics so that that kind of lore gets mixed in, and there's accuracy in terms of a character's either origin or at least their important characteristics, and that's supposedly coming very much from Kevin Feige. Now DC wants to have that. Hold on a moment, because I want to acknowledge D.W. Dunphy's generous super chat. And he says, I expect the next publisher will align the comics side far closer to the MCU to maximize synergies. Well, maybe, but then again, I think that the MCU is pretty happy to give people carte blanche to do what they want in the comics, and then they will adapt what succeeds. They are two different beasts. I think that you will see some inspiration and influences there, but I think that the best thing to do is leave it be. We'll see. It's a possibility. It's certainly a possibility. But we're talking briefly about Warner Brothers and what they want to do with DC properties. Here's the craziest thing I've heard. First of all, this guy that they've hired, this executive, really likes Todd Phillips, director Todd Phillips, most famous for the Hangover movies, and of course he did Joker, which did well. I didn't think it was bad, but I also didn't think it was very original. To me, it felt like using the Joker character, but telling Scorsese movies that we've already seen. It was like Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. It was very much like things that I'd seen before. But that's okay. It was well done for what it was. But this guy's high on it. But he apparently doesn't just want Todd Phillips to do another Joker. No, apparently he's talking to Todd Phillips about potentially being that Kevin Feige guy. But here's the thing. Todd Phillips has said he doesn't really like comics. He wanted to do Joker, but during that process, he said he wasn't necessarily a big fan of comic books. So I don't know. That does not sound like the right person to hire, if you asked me. But of course, why would anyone? I've never made a movie. I just know comics. I think I know movies pretty well, but I don't work in it. Phillips isn't taking on the Feige role. They just brought him in as a consultant. I don't think even that's a good idea, to be honest. I don't think that's a great idea. But who knows? Who knows what will happen? They definitely want to get somebody in that role. Supposedly, they've also reached out to Feige himself again. Because if you remember, Warner Brothers did reach out to Kevin Feige during sort of the phase 2 of Marvel, when they were doing, like, you know, the initial Captain America, Thor, Iron Man sequels, Avengers 2, Age of Ultron. During that whole period of time, they approached Kevin and were like, hey, how about you work for us? And he was like, no, I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing. Thanks anyway, though. So we'll see. We'll see. Here's the thing. At some point, he is probably going to want to move on and do something else with his life, you know? I don't know if the next thing he'd want to do would be to sort of start over and rebuild like a whole cinematic universe. I don't feel like that would hold a whole lot of creative interest. Like, continuing to build what you've already built is one thing, but starting over and doing that again doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. But if they back up, like, you know, dump trucks full of money, I guess, who knows? Anything's on the table. Bruce Timm? Yeah, maybe Bruce Timm would be an interesting idea. The current head of DC Movies, Walter Hamada, seemed to be a frontrunner too, but he's involved with the Ezra Miller mess. Yeah, you know, I think that's what they're going to back off guys like Jeff Johns and stuff. Anybody that's, like, you know, gotten themselves in hot water lately. We'll see. I don't know. Can you think of any director or producer that's done something that where you look at that and say, like, that person would be the right person to guide DC? You know, like, they're somebody that would get what Superman is, for instance. Like, I think that would be a really key element, is getting somebody that really understands that Superman can be interesting and cool and you know, like, decides to do something like, you know, hey, we need to adapt All-Star Superman or something, you know? Or, hey, Henry Cavill isn't the problem. Let's get him back and do a good Superman movie. But I don't know off the top of my head who would be the perfect person for that. Dump Truck Full of Money has definitely been around since before The Simpsons. I can definitely say that that's something I definitely heard in, like, say, the 80s before The Simpsons was ever around. So I was not intentionally referencing Simpsons there. It's entirely possible that they did use that phrase. It's kind of a common colloquialism. Kind of got that out, didn't I? But anyway. Gunn, yeah, Max Landis, oh my god, keep him away. I'd pay money to keep Max Landis away from it. Gunn is not a bad choice. I'm not 100% convinced he can do the wholesome thing yet, but maybe. Kevin Smith? Look, I think Kevin Smith loves this stuff. I don't see anything where he's proven that he can handle, like, you know, like, lots of, you know, big budget, you know, like, A-list personalities, as well as, you know, like, guiding a whole continuity. I believe that he loves the comics and might be capable of turning in some good scripts and production work, but I'd need to see more before I thought he was the guy for this. I don't know. Joe Johnston, Captain America 1, The Rocketeer. Get him in there as a director. He's up there in years, so I'm not 100% sure he's going to be Hollywood's first choice. But maybe. Look, these are talented people, and I'm not knocking any of them. I really am not. I'm just trying to, like, be devil's advocate here is all. I don't know how likely any of them would be. This picture is sick. Well, hopefully it gets good. Let's see. Jamilin Park says, Bruce Timm, Glenn Murakami, Greg Berlanti. I'm burnt out on Berlanti's sort of Arrowverse stuff. Like, at first it was alright, but it's too soap opera-y. It's not... I don't know. I don't think it always gets to the core of the character enough. I don't know. Paul Dini. Joe Johnston should have directed more Marvel movies. Who knows? Maybe he will. You know? Maybe he will. Has to be someone with serious writing and producing skill and a deep love of the characters. Not just anyone can pull off that job. Here's the thing. None of us knew who Kevin Feige was before he got this role. He worked his way up by working on, like, the Spider-Man and X-Men and Hulk movies as, like, an associate producer, and then it was found out that he really knows his stuff with the comics, that he was passionate about it and he had a vision. So it might just be a producer that we haven't heard as much about that would be the perfect choice for DC. But I do think that they should look at what Marvel did right with Kevin Feige and find somebody that loves and cares about these characters and has, like, actually read comics. Frank Darabont. Well, who knows? Let me move on to some more news. All right. I just covered that one. Here's a goofy one, folks. Let's go with what you really are here for. The MTV Movie Awards and how they relate to the current MCU products. Let's see what the Marvel Cinematic Universe was able to accomplish at this year's MTV Movie Awards. Obviously up there with the Oscars, the Golden Globes, what's in England, the BAFTAs. This is clearly high praise indeed when you can lock in an MTV Movie Award. And trust me, Marvel got a few things. Here we go. Breakthrough Performance, female. Yeah, that went to Sophia DiMartino as Sylvie from The Loki Show. So there we go. Marvel is on the board with the female breakout performance, or breakthrough performance. Same difference, I guess. But breakthrough performance, Sophia DiMartino as Sylvie. And you know what? She was a great character. She was. So I'm not, like, putting that down at all. I'm just having fun because of, like, what the MTV Movie Awards are. I'm gonna just read through the ones that are related to the stuff that we care about. There's more. Oh, there's more. Russell T. Davies. I will have nothing to do with MTV in any fashion. Well, Sir Mr. Howell, you can at least listen to me rattle some of these off. Here's one that I was so surprised by, but it really shows that, like, these are done by, like, MTV viewers that get to vote online as compared to, like, judges or something like that. Best Hero. Best Hero. Was it Spider-Man? No. Was it Batman? Robert Pattinson? No. Was it Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow? Yeah, it was. Okay, good for Scarlett. Not who I would have guessed, but that's fun. That's funny. Just shows what this show is. You know who I'd be on board to see what the Duffer Brothers do? Oh, well, the Duffer Brothers do seem to understand nostalgia. I don't know what they know about comics, but maybe. That's an interesting proposition. I like the idea. It's thinking outside the box a little bit. Good job. And there's more. There's more. I can't wait for Loki season 2. Loki was pretty cool. Loki was pretty damn cool. There's 2 more MCU wins for the MTV Movie Awards. Best performance in a movie? That went to Tom Holland for Spider-Man. Spider-Man No Way Home, to be clear. I'm not surprised to see that movie get a win. I mean, that was obviously a pretty popular movie, and the MTV Movie Awards is all about, what's popular. So that's cute. I enjoyed that movie. I haven't been able to see it a second time yet. I picked it up on Blu-ray, but I literally just have not had time to sit down and watch it again. I'd like to. I'd like to very much. And finally, for the MTV Movie Awards that relate to Marvel movies, Best Team. Best Team. That went to Sylvie, Loki, and Mobius from The Loki Show. So Sophia DiMartino, Owen Wilson, and Tom Hiddleston. And so now they can probably ask for $1 million more per movie role because the kids, they love them. But the kids love us, said Dr. Venkman once. What say you? Do you think that those wins were earned? Were those wins deserved? What would have won instead? I didn't even list who else was nominated. Who cares? Let's move on. By the way, I am going to I'm going to end this live stream pretty like on time at 7 o'clock this time, because I always watch a certain live show that actually some of you, now that I think of it, might want to watch too. It's usually on Tuesday nights. My local comic shop does a live show where the owner pulls out a bunch of key issues and sells them at a discount. It's what's called a claim sale. So instead of bidding, if you like what's been put on screen, he will talk about it a little bit in terms of like what makes it important and special, what condition it's in, and then he'll finally announce the price. And whoever types in first the name of the title and the price, or says the word claim, says the title, and says the price, whoever gets those three things right first gets it. And they do ship things. So like when we end, I'm going to go straight to that. I'm going to go straight to watching a live show and participating in it, seeing if I can find any cool back issues. And I encourage you guys to follow me. I'll give you the details there. But it'll be on Facebook. It's a store called Atomic Comics, and there will be a live show when this ends. Andrew Jefferson with a super chat saying that Vecna could use a good moisturizer. No question there. You are right. And then Kevin Connor with a Canadian 1-up. Thank you for the super chat, Kevin. It's nice to have a 1-up. Folks, we're just a tiny bit shy of $50 in super chats, which means 200 more, and I will pick a viewer for this. If we don't hit that, I'm sure we will next week, okay? Need the deets. Yeah, it's called Atomic Comics. It's a store in Tacoma, Washington, like I say, and if you just follow them, you'll get like an alert that they've gone live at 7 o'clock. Well, 7 o'clock Pacific, which is the time zone I'm in. But I think that's what I will be doing, like right at 7, or maybe a minute or two after, because they sort of have a preamble explaining how the rules work. But that's what I'm going to be doing, and I definitely encourage you guys to come, because, hey, you might find a comic that you would really like at a good price, because he always sells it for a little bit less than like normal. And I think that's fun. Anybody gone on any trips or anything lately? Either in or out of country? I'm feeling very cooped up at this point, but I am planning on going to New York for the New York Comic Con, and I believe that's October this year. I'm pretty sure I've got that right. So anyway, but just curious where people are thinking of going or have gone. You know they are making a Beavis and Butthead movie in Paramount Plus. I did hear about that. Yep. With gas prices now? Nope. Well, yeah, that's fair. But flying or train or something like that might literally be cheaper than driving somewhere these days. So. And if you're in another country other than the U.S., it might not be quite as bad. I don't know. A lot of other countries have better public transportation systems than us, that's for sure. I went on a tour of an American military LST ship down here in southern Indiana. Nice. Just went to Niagara Falls, CC, and going to Heroes Con in a few weeks. That sounds fun. I'm trying to plan on visiting my friend in Switzerland. Wow. Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, for a funeral, sorry. Oh, Mandela Butterfly, thank you for the super chat. I love that cat. And Victor Julio says, crazy about comic tropes. Oh, don't go too crazy. Oh, the authorities will come for me. And then where will I be? I don't want to get arrested for making comic tropes. No, thank you very much for the super chat. That's really appreciated. Really, really kind of you. If our schedules align, I would be happy to treat you and your wife to some New York-style pizza. I'll be there for the con, too. Chrissy and I are going to go for Saturday. And I don't know beyond that exactly what we'll do that day yet. But, yeah. We've gone to all of them except for last year. Or at least I have. Chrissy didn't go last year. Chrissy and I had tickets last year. But at the last minute, because of like where COVID rates were, we opted out of traveling to New York. We just didn't feel like dealing with it. But I miss New York. Got to kick it with James O'Barr. Hey, there you go. Going to TF Con in a month. Is that Transformers or something? I did go to a convention. I got to meet Carl Weathers. Hey, Carl Griefa, right? No, Griefa? What's his name in the Mandalorian? Grief Karga? I can't quite remember. It's something like that. It's something like that. Gotta keep on inking. If I'm gonna get anywhere, I gotta throw down some more blacks. More ink. Can never have too much, right? I went to Anime Boston last week, but I live in Massachusetts, so I didn't travel out of state. Will I take the train, plane, or drive? Oh, I would definitely be flying. I'm not gonna drive or take the train across the country. That would take forever. Transformers fan convention in Toronto. Toronto's a cool country. I've been missing Comic-Cons for the past 2 years because of COVID. Still feel uneasy in attending Comic-Con with COVID still out there. That's fair. It all depends on how healthy you are and whether you are vaccinated. But I'm vaccinated and boosted, and I think I'll feel okay going this year. That's my current plan. Currently, I think I'm okay with going. We'll see. We'll see. When in doubt, ink more. Have I been watching Obi-Wan? Also interested in Ms. Marvel. Love Miss Marvel. Love Kamala Khan. She is a fantastic character. Cannot wait for that show. And I've been really enjoying Obi-Wan. I think that they're doing a good show there. They're doing stuff I didn't expect. And I don't want to spoil it for somebody that maybe hasn't seen it yet. But the first 3 episodes, yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. It's good Star Wars. You know, Ewan McGregor's a fantastic actor. He's a movie star. And so you're not going to get a bad performance or anything from him. And the only thing I've heard as a criticism, and it's kind of minor, but it is real. I was listening to the guys from, I think it's called The Weekly Planet. Yeah, The Weekly Planet. And they had a good observation. The Star Wars shows are filmed in something called the volume, which is like this virtual set, and instead of being green screen, it projects in super clear resolution a 3D environment on the screen, so the actors can sort of feel like they're there instead of like just being on a green screen. But that does mean there is a bit of a limitation to the size and scope of everything, right? And they were mentioning how they felt that like sometimes that felt like the action was like just the tiniest bit claustrophobic, and I feel like that's an accurate observation to a degree. I think that they do a good job hiding how they're making the show, and it feels very real. But that, yeah, like, people aren't doing, like, big backflips and, like, huge moves. The actual moves are usually, like, limited to a certain amount. I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, I can understand being disappointed that they changed her powers, Moritaka. I don't necessarily think that was the right idea, but it's possible they could still get the character right with some different powers. And it's also possible that the powers could evolve or change, Like, sometimes Marvel sort of tricks us. Sometimes they don't really tell us exactly where things are going. Like, for instance, a lot of people are sort of upset that Gorr the God Butcher doesn't necessarily look like Gorr the God Butcher in the previews for Thor. But if you've read those comics, then you know that Gorr, as he gets more powerful, like, changes. He looks different as time goes on. So there's a possibility that he will look correct, and there's just a certain starting point. Marvel just kind of tricks us sometimes. Or names a character something that we're not expecting, and then it turns out to be, an important character. So we'll see what her powers are and stuff like that, and whether it affects the character. I hope it doesn't. I would describe the show as uncivilized. Here's some weird news. So, this past Saturday, a comic book vendor stabbed a customer. He didn't kill the guy. The guy isn't in, like, life-threatening condition, but he did stab him. So here's what happened. There's a guy who had a license to vend on the New York City Manhattan streets, okay? He was selling, like, back issues. He was wearing, like, a suit and tie, and he was, like, 51, but he's in a suit and tie with, a table in front of him, selling old comic books. I don't know if he runs a store or an eBay site, or if these were, like, his or what. I don't know any of that. I can't find the details. And he got into an argument. Oh, he was, as far as where he was, like, in front of, like, the Macy's, if you know Manhattan. Yeah, he was on the street in front of the Macy's. I mean, even if you've just watched the Thanksgiving Day parade, you sort of know where Macy's is in New York. So he was in front of there on the street. He had a license. He was a vendor. He got in an argument with a guy that was like 21, like 30 years younger than him, and he stabbed the guy. The police got involved. Nobody put up a fight, and the guy that was injured got to the hospital like right away. It's not life-threatening, but what? Like, I want to know so much more. Like, were they fighting over, like, the history of Green Lantern or something? Or, like, the price of a comic? Or what? Like, what was going on there that caused somebody to get stabbed over a comic book? It reminds me of that tragedy from, like, remember the San Diego Comic-Con about, like, 4 or 5 years ago? So, maybe it was more now. And somebody got stabbed in the eye with a pencil. Oh, that was grisly. Oh, that was horrible. I'd totally forgotten until just this moment about that horrible event. But anyway, yeah, isn't that crazy? So I'll keep my eye out to see if we ever get more details on that. But that is it. Hooded Cobra Commander is here. I did see Top Gun Maverick, Joe Dent. I thought it was excellent. My buddy Hooded Cobra Commander 788, you can see there in the chat, he has a wonderful channel about G.I. Joe figures, and covers some of the other stuff related to classic G.I. Joe, like the comics. So if by any chance you discovered me recently because you watched my interview with Larry Hama and you like G.I. Joe, I strongly recommend my pal Brian's Hooded Cobra Commander 788's channel. I think it's a really wonderfully done channel. He goes into excellent detail on the history of a figure, all the details, the influences, all that stuff. Like any aspect of a figure or vehicle that you could think of, when he reviews it, he goes into like fantastic detail and really tells a story about it. Nice to see you, pal. Stabbed over comics. I know, isn't that crazy, Black Phoenix? I don't know. I don't think I'd risk getting stabbed even over, like, you know, a copy of Action Comics #1 or anything. I'd just be like, I'm good. You're right. Superman is vulnerable to blue kryptonite. No, he's not. That's Bizarro Superman. But I wouldn't correct anybody for that. Zarkle Nito Pants says, that Larry Hama interview was excellent. Really cool, learning so much about the industry and Hama himself. Thank you. Boy, do I wish I could have had like at least 2 hours with the man. But, you know, he said an hour he could do, and I sort of pushed that to an hour and 10 minutes. There were people like are incredibly kind in the comments on that video, but there are one or two people that are like, you forgot to ask him about this or that, like, you know, the fact that Larry Hama is a musician and plays the guitar, or, you know, like that he writes the file cards for G.I. Joe action figures. And it's like, folks, I didn't forget. I only have so much time, and I'm sorry I didn't ask the question that was on your mind. I was trying to ask things that were relevant to my channel that maybe hadn't been discussed too much before or at all. But I didn't forget. I feel like I get that a lot on my videos, though. People are like, you forgot to do this. Like on my gorilla video, they're like, you forgot to mention this gorilla and that gorilla. It's like, no, I didn't forget. It's just that it doesn't seem very interesting sometimes to just do an episode where I'm just listing facts, you know, like making the episode twice as long just to include every fact that's related. It's not what I'm gonna do. It's not really forgetting. I admit sometimes there are probably certain aspects that I probably have forgotten in an interview or an episode describing comics history. I'm sure that there have been. I can't think of that right now, but mostly I don't forget. I just intentionally leave certain things out because I gotta move on. Gotta move on. I gotta move on. Anyway, that's just me venting a tiny bit. I didn't forget. Chris, in your last stream, you mentioned that you need to do a quick video due to your busy week. Do you interview episodes take less time to do than your regular videos? Yes, BB. They definitely do take less time. There's not much that I need to do in terms of editing to get those ready to be viewed. There's prep work for them. There's coordinating them, but it's not as much once I actually do it to get it online, which is nice. But I also have to bear in mind that when I do an interview episode, it's not going to get as many views as a traditional episode. So, you know, I have to go in knowing so, you know, I could easily just be interviewing anyone with a Kickstarter, or there's plenty of up and coming artists and writers that would love the promotion, and I understand that, but I can't be doing that all the time. So I reserve that for people that interest me or I think would have like a big impact on my viewers. Oh, super chat from Steve Sorensen. Going to Brooklyn Comic-Con on Saturday. I am excited. Hey, have a great time. I will be at a friend's wedding. So I'm looking forward to Saturday as well, but for very different reasons. But then the Saturday after that is a Comic-Con here in Washington called the Washington Summer Con. I might take a vacation day from work to go to that. Oh, thinking of work. Yesterday, oh my God, this made me feel so old. I ended up with excruciating back pain, and I didn't even do anything. Like, I didn't lift anything. I didn't, like, jump or sneeze or anything. I went into work. We had, like, sort of a meeting for about, like, 45 minutes, and then I went to stand up, and I just couldn't stand up. My back was in agony. It was all inflamed. I ended up ultimately, like, leaving. I had to go home and just rest and ice it. And it was in pain the entire day, like, until I went to bed. Fortunately, when I woke up today, while I do still feel some pain, it's nothing that's limiting me. Oh my God, it made me feel so old, because, like, I was like, what is this? Like, why is my back hurting? There was no reason for it to hurt that I could really think of, you know? It just did. It made me feel so old. Hated it. Hated it. Anyway, so fortunately I'm feeling good today. Great stream tonight. Hey, thanks, Michael. Appreciate that. Let's see. Even academic papers require major cuts to fit publishing formats. I missed something, I guess. Oh, look at this. Mian Yan with the super chat. If you were editor-in-chief and you hired David Lynch, what artists would you pair him with, and what book would you put him on? Wow. I'd put him on a Twin Peaks book. As far as an artist that would work well with him, I don't know. Maybe like somebody that can sort of do like good crime with like dark shadows, like a David Lapham or a Sean Phillips, somebody like that. Oh my God, that would be so cool. Have you tried not being so old? No, but I like that idea. I like that idea. Just don't be old. Duh. You're so old. Yeah, I did say sort of hated it, like Living Color. Dave McKean? Yeah, sure. But that's what I would want to put him on. Something like that. Or something that's like akin to like a Blue Velvet or something. Basically some sort of book like you'd see in 90s Vertigo. Just like let Lynch write whatever he wants and find him the right artist, though, ultimately. Because you're not going to sign him. You're going to luck out and get to work with him on whatever he wants to do. But he is a cartoonist, so like, oh man, a David Lynch comic book would be awesome. I guess he's never really seemed to express much interest in that, but boy, would that be fantastic. That would be something. David Lynch's YouTube is bonkers. He does random number shoutouts and daily LA weather updates. I know. The weather today is sunny with an easterly wind, high of 82. He's a unique guy, but I really like David Lynch, actually. I really do. Chris, I noticed in your Hama video, I noticed that the director, writer, cartoonist S. Craig Zahler is one of your supporters. That's pretty cool. It is, isn't it? Yeah. I really liked his movie, Attack on Cell Block 99, if I'm remembering that right. Did Bone Tomahawk. Yeah. If you look in there, there's a couple, like, cool names in my Patreon list. There are. And, the only thing is it makes me feel like bad that I don't really produce much in terms of extras for Patreon. I still just don't have a lot of time to do that. I try to release episodes early. I try to like give like sort of polls now and then or behind the scenes blog posts so that I'm giving something. It's not a lot. It's mostly support from people that want to keep my show going, and that means a lot to me. Alex Maleev on a David Lynch book. I like that. J.H. Williams on Twin Peaks. Sure. Let's see. I've got more news. Oh, here's a good one. Here's a good one. The other pieces of news, those sucked. But this one you want to hear. All right, no. There is going to be a Creepshow horror anthology comic book from Skybound. That's Kirkman's company. It'll be based on the Shudder TV show, which was based on the Creepshow movie, which was based on the EC horror comics like Tales from the Crypt. So, Tales from the Crypt and stuff inspires George Romero and who was the other guy on Creepshow? Stephen King, to make a Creepshow movie because they didn't want to bother licensing that stuff. They just sort of made something in that vein. And then that inspired a TV show, and then that TV show is now inspiring a comic book. But yeah, it's going to be a 5-issue series, and they've got some great names in there. Paul Dini, Kelly Jones, he would be good on horror. David and Mariah Lapham, pretty cool. Chris, we aren't here for extras. Thank you. Some people might be, though. I like that Joe Dent kid on the Patreon list. I have heard he's great. I've heard similar things. Yep. Wasn't there supposed to be a Tales from the Crypt reboot? Probably. It's a pretty popular property, so I'm sure that it's been floated many times to be rebooted as both comic and TV and movie. I'm sure. Any thoughts on the new publishing company Frank Miller presents? New stories of Sin City and Ronin. Well, we've talked about that a fair amount on the last couple of episodes of this show. Definitely has some great talent involved. Some interesting premises. I was definitely surprised to hear that a bunch of their funding came from that NFT company. That weirds me out a little. I just sort of wonder what kind of control or influence that would have, if any. Very strange. Did not expect any of that, but we'll see. You know, Frank Miller has done some weird stuff, but he's done some stuff that I really love, and maybe shame on me, but I still sort of have, like, faith that he'll turn out something good. That's, like, what I want to believe. I don't know. We'll see. When I win the Powerball, I will Patreon a lot of people. That would be nice. Yeah, exactly. Jamilin just said Inception with the Creepshow thing. So there was EC Comics inspires a movie, which inspires a TV show, which inspires a comic book. But anyway, I think that Creepshow as a comic book sounds like an excellent idea. I'm all in. I'll definitely give that a shot. And I like the first 2 Creepshow movies. There was a third one, but that one wasn't very good, to be honest. I think it was a different group of people that made it, too, now that I think of it. But anyway. Yeah, Creepshow was pretty good. Pulpy horror. B-movie type stuff. But entertaining, you know? Decent twists, good actors. Yeah, it was fun. If you ever want to see Leslie Nielsen do something serious, that's sort of what he did before Naked Gun and stuff. He's a pretty evil guy that kills Ted Danson from Cheers in the first Creepshow, I think. So if that's something you've been looking for, now I've aimed you in the right direction. What else do I have for news? We've got a little bit more. So, I guess Netflix had some sort of, like, maybe virtual nerd con this weekend, because they released a lot of photos and trailers and release dates for properties that would all, like, interest us. For instance, they've released a trailer for Sandman, and it's bonkers to think that it's finally getting made, just because it's been ages that's been in development. But yeah, Sandman finally got a trailer. I'll be honest, when I look at the trailer, it looks pretty screen accurate to the stories that Gaiman wrote. I can definitely tell what they're adapting just by, like, looking at the imagery. Only big change I really noticed was they changed John Constantine to Joanna Constantine, but I don't think that matters for the TV show, and it gives us something different. And they announced the date that it would be released, August 5th, day before my birthday. Happy birthday to me. But it looks interesting. It looks potentially interesting. Yeah, you know, hopefully they're going to get it right, because that is definitely one of the more revered pieces of comic book literature. I don't think, you know, Neil Gaiman or DC is interested in getting that wrong. They've got a reputation to maintain there, so hopefully they've been careful about this. You know, sometimes it does make me nervous these days when a TV show ends up on Netflix, just because I've seen them abandon so many. I don't think that they're very loyal to, you know, renewing it if they just don't feel that it's necessary. But we'll see. We'll see. Some of those Sandman shots are straight from comic panels. Exactly. Yeah, there was a lot of loyalty in it. So it could be cool. Mark that on your calendar, folks. That's right, Genie. They also announced a bunch of other comic book related shows are like either renewed or coming soon. Season 3 of Umbrella Academy. Season 2 of Sweet Tooth. Season 3 of Lock and Key. Season 2 of Alice in Borderland. They showed a bunch of the sets being built for One Piece. These are all based on comic books or manga. By the way, if you haven't seen one of those that I mentioned, the one that I really liked, Alice in Borderland, or Arisu in Borderland, that was a cool show based on, I think it was possibly even an improvement over the original manga. And I don't say that usually, but I honestly thought that the TV show was possibly better than the original manga. Something to look for. Netflix used to give all their shows at least 2 seasons. Now they're canceling everything. Yeah. Joanna Constantine is John Constantine's ancestor. Right. It's just that John Constantine was in the original comics. This is, a new character. But that's okay. I'm sure she's going to act just like John did in the comic for moving the plot forward. But it gives us something at least a little different. And the actress was, all of a sudden I'm forgetting her name. She was the Doctor's companion with both Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi. Oh, all of a sudden I'm forgetting the actress's name. That's too bad. She was good, though, on Doctor Who. She was quite good. Like, the character at first started, like, at a time when I didn't want to say goodbye to Amy Pond, and she was actually really good. Anyway, could be cool. Still can't believe they canceled Jupiter's Legacy. See, I can believe they canceled that one, though, because I tried to watch that one, and it felt very low budget to me. That did not feel like a typical Netflix budget. It felt like a CW budget. I didn't think the special effects were too great, and the cast was all sort of like, I was like, did NBC's pilot season fall through this year? I don't know. It just didn't quite feel right. It felt cheap to me. But, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being a jerk. Lupin from Harry Potter is playing John Dee. I'm scared to watch 24 Hours. Yeah. That's the thing. Sandman is horror. Sometimes it's fantastical, and sometimes the stories aren't horrific, but overall, early Sandman especially is definitely horror. There's going to be some really disturbing stuff on that show. So you're right, yeah. I really got upset when Amy Pond was no longer the Doctor's companion because I was 11 and had a crush on the character. Oh, you were 11 years old. I thought you meant you were like 11, the 11th Doctor. I was like trying to understand what you were saying. You were 11 years old. Gotcha. Yeah, no, she was great. Karen Gillan was definitely one of the best companions. I put her up there with like... who are my favorites? Ace and Jane. Who was the 4th Doctor's companion? I haven't watched Doctor Who in a little bit, and all of a sudden the names are going away, but Jane, whatever her name is. Who is playing Matthew Cable? I don't know. I didn't really look very closely at the cast list on this. I didn't look very closely. I kind of want to be surprised. To whatever extent I can, since I've already read the comics, I want to sort of be a little surprised with whatever they do differently. And that could include, like, what the characters look like. I'm not against hearing it, but mostly I've just sort of been ignoring digging too deep. If it's put in front of me, I'm like, okay. I hope they do the sequences with Delirium Justice. Yeah. I hope that they do the sequences with, like, the, what do you call it? The, yeah, I'm terrible with names tonight, folks. Dr. Destiny. Oof, that was creepy stuff. Or the Corinthian. They have some really creepy villains in Sandman. Hey, speaking of creepy villains from TV adaptations, I just want to say, I've watched the first 3 episodes of The Boys, Season 3, and man, do I like that show. And I still hold by my video's assessment. I think that the TV show is better than the comics on that particular adaptation. I think that they've made some clever adjustments. And Homelander on that show is one of the most terrifying and horrible villains I've ever seen on screen. Whereas the Homelander in the comics was actually a bit of a joke in a way. I mean, he's powerful and dangerous, but he was a little bit of a joke. But man, oh yeah, Elizabeth Sladen, right, Sarah Jane Smith. Thank you, folks. Thank you. Sarah Jane Smith was who I was trying to think of, not just Jane. I wasn't thinking of her first name. Yes, and people are listing other great companions like Romana and Leela. Well, obviously the 4th Doctor got his fair share of excellent companions. Love Doctor Who. Haven't watched it in a little bit. Need to go back and catch up. The beginning of episode 1 of The Boys was the most disgusting thing in any of them so far. Yeah. Homelander's actor is phenomenal in that role. He is just so... He's really playing a nuanced crazy guy. You know, like a guy that's just broken on so many levels but so dangerous. And you know what? A lot of the credit should also go to all of the actors on that show, because they all very convincingly play being terrified of Homelander, and that makes us in turn as the viewers terrified of Homelander. Like when we see how scared other people are, that makes us scared. I don't know who's calling me, but that is something that can wait. Pluto TV has classic Doctor Who channel. You can watch it for free. They also have a Star Trek channel. Nice. Very nice. I know The Boys is really good, but I am honestly tired of the cynical take on superheroes, especially the Superman-esque ones. Well, I can definitely understand that. For my opinion, I am a little bit too, but I think this one does it the best. I really do. And it's not... The Boys comic was, Ennis critiquing superheroes. Because he thinks superheroes are pretty dumb. He doesn't like them that much. But the show is more criticizing the problems with capitalism run amok. It's more about the company Vought and the people that Vought enables than it is about just superheroes in general. And I think that that's more relevant and more interesting to see discussed. I do. But I like it. But boy, it's not for everyone. It is a pretty violent show. It is. They just turn every person on there into a bag of blood. There's some pretty extreme gore. Yeah, Garth Ennis does write Superman well. He said that he does respect Superman. And I think you're right that he does treat Superman with respect, but not like the rest of them, really. He frequently makes them look stupid and ridiculous, which is, I think, a little unfair when you're the writer that controls everything about them, I don't think it's necessarily fair to approach a character like that. I think I'll use one of these new pens that I got. The Homelander manages to justify it even when it's been a tired take for a long time. It's the best version of how scary a Superman gone bad character can be. Because he's enabled and, like, backed up by, like, a whole company. That's what's scary to a degree. I believe that, like, if they just had every superhero out there gang up against Homelander, that they could probably beat him, but that isn't going to happen because that's not what the company wants to happen. But I like it. I know it's not for everyone, though. I think I've got some more news. Oh, I didn't even know that this was sneaking up on us, but apparently Blade is about to start filming. The next Marvel adaptation of Blade for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They say that it's supposed to start filming in Georgia and New Orleans as early as July 4th. Yeah. So we will see. But hopefully it's good. Mahershala Ali is a great actor. No question about that. Like, he's a great actor. I have faith he can handle whatever is thrown at him for playing Blade. And there's some different directions they could go with Blade for a Marvel Cinematic Universe character, because I like the Wesley Snipes Blade movies. Well, at least the first two. The third one has its points that are okay. But it's not exactly accurate to, like, the comics version. So there are some things they could do differently that you might not be expecting if all you know about Blade is from those movies. Because those movies weren't too accurate. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that in a lot of ways they made Blade cooler in the movies. But there's still, like, some unexplored stuff that they could definitely do. So we'll see. I have very high hopes for Blade. Will this Blade be closer to the comics? Probably. Who says I think he is no longer involved with the film? If you're talking about Mahershala Ali, he definitely is. I mean, he voiced it as recently as the Eternals this past year. But if you're talking about somebody else, I might have missed something in the chat, so I don't know. Snipes' Blade kicked Peach. He was good, man. Wesley Snipes is a very good actor as long as he's invested and motivated. He's done some really good dramatic performances. He's done some good action movies. He's a lot of fun. And, it's too bad that he was so checked out for Blade 3. Because he did not really deliver the same performance in that one. There's some really interesting and funny stories behind the scenes. If you can ever hear any of Patton Oswalt's stories during that time, I recommend looking that stuff up. It's pretty hilarious. But yeah, it's too bad that he was so checked out on the third one. Oh well. But I think he made the role his own. God, I hope they film Blade like Black Dynamite. Sort of give it a fake exploitation vibe or something like that. You could. There's a lot of ways you could go with it. I would love it if they sort of gave it more of the old British Hammer horror films. Like, gave it a look like that. I think that would be pretty badass. That, to me, would look like the stuff Gene Colan was drawing when he created Blade in Tomb of Dracula. That would be my preference, but I don't know how likely something like that is. I blame David S. Goyer for Blade 3. Well, certainly, as the director and writer, he has to shoulder a bunch of the blame. He couldn't control things, but for some reason, Wesley Snipes is clearly just checked out on that movie. And I don't know if it was all to do with the director or if it was just what was going on in his life at the time, you know? Who knows? The script and direction on Blade 3 was not good. No. Bring back Snipes for a one-off sequel and let him do literally whatever he wants. Yeah. Chris Sears with a generous super chat. How close are we to the comic book giveaway? We are... let me do some math. Because it's at a weird number. We're, of course, closer. I'm going to round up some things. $170 away. So once I get $170 more in super chats, like I want to stick to what I originally pledged. If I knew it was going to take this long, I might have asked for less, but I want to stay honest for anyone that's like, you know, sort of been tracking it and everything. So yeah, about 100. What did I say? 180? $170 away from me giving away this to a random person. Could be the end of this, but we're almost over, so it's not going to be this episode. It'll be probably next episode. What I'll have to do is come up with like a really clickbaity title for a future episode, and that'll bring a bunch of people in that like only check it out sometimes, and get a few more super chats, and then I can give it away, and one lucky person will guess the winning number. So, folks, let me reiterate what I'm going to do right now, because actually, if you want, you can still see me to a degree after this. And that what I'm talking about there is I'm taking off because my local comic shop does a weekly live claim sale, and this week they're doing it on a Monday. Usually they do Tuesday, but for the next 3 weeks they're doing it on Monday. So, Snipes' cameo on What We Do in the Shadows was great. So, let me be clear. When I end this in a few minutes at 7 o'clock, I will be going to a different live stream. It's on Facebook. If you want to see it, it's what's called the live claim sale. My local comic store, you can look them up on Facebook. They're called Atomic Comics. Sorry, that's my alarm reminding me so I don't forget, because that's where you can get some really amazing deals. And I'm giving myself competition, but I like you guys, and you know, that's so I don't mind the competition. My store will like put out a bunch of like talk about like all these key issues, about like 30 different key issues. As they put them out, they'll talk to you about like what condition it's in, why it's special, and then they'll finally reveal the price. And if that's something you're interested in, you write claim, the title, and the price. And whoever types that in first gets to win that, and they can mail stuff. So that's what I'm going to be doing after this. I love it. It's so much fun. It's comics. It's a claim sale. You know, I get all sorts of weird, cool stuff. So ditching us for comics? Well, I never. Well, I pretty much always end it at 7 anyway. So tonight I'm just going to end it more like, you know, on time than like sort of vaguely in that area. So if you want, like, I'd love it if at least some of you joined. I'd love to see some of you there. And maybe you'll get some cool comics, or at least see me tell some pretty bad jokes in the chat room. Again, it's on Facebook. Look up Atomic Comics, and it's the store that's in Tacoma, Washington. And their live show will start like basically right at 7, maybe a minute after, but like they're very good about being on time. And in addition, even if you don't buy something, you usually get like a tiny bit of a history lesson on a bunch of cool comics. They usually have some variant covers for like new stuff that comes out, and then like a mix of mainstream stuff that's more recent, maybe that's tied into current movies and TV shows, as well as maybe some bronze or 80s stuff. Every once in a while, a couple indie books that are like cool for some reason, like, you know, like Alien versus Predator 1 or something like that, you know, like stuff that like almost anybody could care about. I love the show. I think it's super entertaining, and that's what I'm going to be doing in just a couple minutes. Would check it out, but I'm not on Facebook. Yeah, sorry, I guess, can I put a link in the chat? I might be able to. Oh, well, it's not up yet, so I wouldn't really be able to, like, link the actual, like, live stream, but I'm going to go to Facebook to see if I can just pull up the page for Atomic Comics, and if I'm allowed to put a link in the chat, that's what I'm going to do right now. But that's where I'm going to be. And I know it's not for everybody, but I think it's so much fun. There. I think, I was able to do it because it's me. I have special privileges. So I didn't quite get to finish. I was coming up with a smaller version of Vecna here. And obviously this is sort of like a Demogorgon. I say obviously. You have to have watched Stranger Things to I guess, know that for sure. But anyway. And obviously I needed to still finish inking down here and stuff. But I think that came out all right, right? I think that's not too bad. Oh, hi. You caught Chris closing in on a sale. Speaking of selling cars, let's take a look at the most famous car sellers in comics. Yeah, I think like Chemdog just said, Cobra Commander is famously a used car salesman, but I'm not sure if I can think of any other important characters in comics. Are their comics radiation-free? Guaranteed radiation-free. There might be a little bit of potassium in there because people eat bananas and there's a little radiation in there. That's about it. Otherwise, yes, you can safely get these comics without being irradiated. Anyway, that show's starting now, so I'm going to take off, folks. But I'll see you next week. I'll have a new episode of Comic Tropes on Sunday. And I hope some of you will follow me over to Facebook to watch this claim sale from Atomic Comics. Thanks, everybody. I had a great time tonight.